I always thought of writing as a solitary experience, but this whole process has made me realize it's like there's such a community behind it, and it's so important to get other people's opinions, to read other people's works.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Conversation with Nadine Matheson. As always, I hope that you're well and I hope that you've had a good week. We are now in November. I know that all of you probably said the same thing. Where's the year gone? How are we in November? There's only 2 months of the year to go. I do not know. I have no idea where the year has gone. I'm asking the exact same question that you are. I have no idea. But here we are. And in November, if you're a writer or you have aspirations of being a writer, you've either got a novel currently sitting on your desktop waiting to be completed, or you've got a novel out on submission and you're waiting to hear back from an agent or from an editor. November's normally the time of year when a lot of us start a challenge. And I'm trying to say it without actually saying it, but we normally start a writing challenge. And this year, there's a lot of writers who still want to do the challenge, but not participate where the challenge takes place. Oh, I'm talking about NaNoWriMo. That's what I'm talking about. I wrote my very first book. Actually, no, that's a lie. It would have been my second book that I self-published, The Sisters. I completed that as a result of NaNoWriMo. And because this year there was some slight controversy with NaNoWriMo due to their stance on AI and some objectionable language that was used in their initial post about AI and writing books and taking place in NaNoWriMo, a lot of people are looking for an alternative place in order to have support whilst they complete their projects. I have the place for you. That place is called The Writing, and it's a forum that's been set up by myself and best-selling author Dorothy Coomson. And the link will be in the show notes, and if you click on the link, sign up, you can be part of a very supportive writing community during the month of November if you're looking for an alternative to the other place. Now, there's one more thing I need to remind you about before we get on with the show. Regular listeners will know that you can support the podcast by buying me a cup of coffee on Ko-fi. I love saying that. Buy me a cup of coffee on Ko-fi. But also, if you go to my Ko-fi page, you can also buy exclusive The Conversation merchandise. And in addition to that, you can also buy signed copies of my books, because I'm always asked, where can I get a signed copy of your book? Well, you can get it direct from me. So go down to the show notes again, click on the link, and not only can you buy me a cup of coffee to support the podcast, because that's where it goes. It goes into keeping the podcast going, but you can also buy a signed copy of my book, and you can also buy exclusive The Conversation merchandise. Oh, and also, before I forget, you can also buy the digital version of my writing daily planner. So all these things are available there. Right, let's get on with the show. This week, I'm in conversation with debut novelist and TikTok content creator Cameron Capello. And in our conversation, we talk about seeing behind the curtains of the publishing industry, manifesting and pursuing your dreams, and the pressure to keep creating as a content creator. Now, as always, sit back, we'll go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Cameron Capello, welcome to The Conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so my very first question for you is, what was it like for you? Because we know, and the listeners will find out, that you're a content creator. So you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you've got thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. And in the beginning, you always had other people's books in your hands. So what was it like for you that moment when you had your book in your hands for the first time?
It's surreal, and I still get chills thinking about it. Like, never did I think that, like, I don't know. I, for a long time, thought this book was just going to live on like Wattpad or something, like a fan fiction website. But so to have it like as a published book in my hand, I mean, it was the coolest experience ever. And like seeing so many of them when I went to the publishing house at Pan Mac, like chills. That's it. I was just blown away.
Was this always the plan that you had for yourself, to be a writer?
Yeah, I think I've always saw myself doing something artistic. I was an English major in college, despite both my parents begging me not to, because they said, like, what are you gonna do with that? And I was like, I don't know, I want to write. So yeah, that's always been the dream. Totally.
It's always funny whenever I have these conversations and we talk about like the dreams and aspirations that our parents have for us, and sometimes it doesn't align with what we want. But it's like they
Totally.
can't see the vision, but you can see the vision that you have for yourself.
Exactly. And I'm a big manifester, so I really do believe like if you just see the vision like you're saying and like you just keep working at it, then eventually something's going to break. Yeah, my sister, she's a singer, so she sort of paved the way of an unconventional career path. So I will say I think I got the easier brunt of my parents, because when she's like, oh, I want to be a singer, they were like, oh my god, what is happening? But I think we managed to do it in the end, so yeah.
What do your parents do?
So my mom is a teacher and my dad is a manager of a clothing tailor, but actually he just retired. So yeah, so my mom like wanted me to be a teacher. Um, and she was like, "Oh, you can always write your book on the side when you're not teaching." And I was like, yeah, I can, but I can also just try and like write full time." So yeah, actually halfway through university, I switched out of my teaching minor, or was it my major? I don't know. Because I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't
Oh my
pretend
God,
this
it's
is
such
what
a
I want to do.
similarity with us because right now when we're recording this, it's A-level results day. So this is the day that, all the 18-year-olds to get their results and see if they have the
Scary.
grades to go to uni and do the subjects they want to do. And I always think about this day like 29 years ago. So I always say I completely messed up my A-level. So I didn't get the results I wanted. And I didn't. So the course I wanted to do was I was supposed to do law and American studies. And because I
Ooh.
messed up my A levels, I couldn't do the law. So I did go to uni, but I ended up doing, God, it was a really red subject I had to do. So I did history, but I also had to add on philosophy and what was it, technology and society. And I'm like, this is just a crazy subject. And I don't think I lasted one lecture. And I was like, nope.
Wait,
I
that's
can't do this. I
crazy.
can't do this.
Yeah. So then you switched, or you just said no
Yeah,
university? Okay.
I switched. I went and had a chat with with like the head of American Studies. I remember his name, Dr. Eden. I went and had a chat with him, and I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This is like I want to do American Studies. I want to do history. Like I'm good not doing law. I know I can do law later on. I can do a conversion course. Like I need to. I just can't do what I've been accepted for. And it's like he literally ticked a form, and I switched classes.
Wow.
And yeah,
Wow.
I was good to go.
That's crazy. Yeah, like for me, I remember everyone freaking out. We have like the SATs, tests you take when you're
Mm.
18 to get into college. And I remember everyone around me like studying for months and like getting private tutors. And I don't know if I should be saying this because it's not helpful to anyone, but in my mind, I was like, just everything's gonna work out. Like I don't have to study. So I didn't study at all. And everything did work out. So I don't know what advice I'm trying to give genuinely. But yeah, I just think like if you have some sort of vision, I just knew I was like chasing after what I wanted. And the other things, I was like, no, these are not important, even though they are to some people. So,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't think that's necessarily bad advice, though. I don't think it's bad to have a vision and be really clear about what you want and be focused on that. Because I think there's so many, so especially when I have these conversations, there's so many writers who, in the very beginning, they were probably pursuing someone else's dream and not
Mhm.
necessarily their own. And having that faith, and I always say it all comes down to mindset as well. So having that faith in yourself and having that strong mindset to be committed. People have it, but they're convinced to not follow it.
100%. Yeah. So I think that's what like differentiates people is like if you really have the drive to actually see it through, because it's really scary and it's hard. But you know, if you want something, gotta chase it. I just saw the Twisters movie, so I'm quoting Glenn Powell in Twisters.
Seeing the Twister movie makes me laugh because I remember the first Twister and I was seeing people on social media going like, oh my God, there's a first one. And I'm like, yes, there's a first one.
That's so funny.
One.
Yeah, I really just went for the cowboy hat. Sorry. And then it was like a lot about the weather. I was like, oh, okay. Less
now I
cowboy
get
hat.
it.
Yeah.
So when did you know that you could write? So I always think that's interesting as well, because we can always have, we have this dream, we want to see our books on the shelf, but knowing that you can write and that you have a talent for it and that you can tell a story, when did you know you could do that?
Well, I think from a young age, I knew that English and history were my strong subjects versus like math and science. Like I cannot do basic math. So I knew like I had a liking for the humanities. And I think I remember being really proud of myself in third grade. I had just read all like 52 of the Nancy Drew books and I wanted to like write my own book of like a mystery. So I remember writing that and showing it to my teacher and she was like, wow, like this is great. And it made me feel really good. And I was like, this was so fun to do. And it was like an assignment. And that from that point, I was like, oh, like this is cool. I should keep going down this route.
Were you still pursuing that in college? Because I would say it's one thing studying English. You can study English, understand the text, but it's different when you have to write creatively and find that story from wherever you find the inspiration from and mold it.
So that was my compromise with my parents. It was like, okay, you can be an English major, but don't be a creative writing major. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll take it. So yeah, in college, I wasn't writing creatively until the last, my last semester. I had enough credits to graduate, but I saw a creative writing class left and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Cause I've never taken a creative writing class before. And that is like the first time that anyone other than my sister had ever read like anything as an adult that I was writing. So it was, I think, validating and really pushed me forward.
So what was it like? Because, when we do our research, because I have to do my research and I'm reading up about you and reading about your first novel. And you said, well, I don't know if you said it or it was written somewhere, that when you was writing your first novel, you was trying to process your emotions and your relationship. What was it like for you, though, putting that on the page? Because it's exposing. It's a lot. It's one thing writing what I write, which is like mysteries and thrillers and, I'm dealing with serial killers and stuff. But when your inspiration's coming from you, from your own heartfelt, deep experiences, how do you do that?
Yeah, it was, so I originally started writing I'll Look For You Everywhere. I say it's kind of a fan fiction because in college I was super shy, didn't have any friends. So I was just like, what if I just wrote a story about someone like me who's, very uncomfortable in their own skin, but they get the love that they deserve, just because they're not like the outgoing, bubbly people that I would see around me like that. I don't know. I felt like those were the only people who were finding connections and relationships and it was bumming me out. So I started writing that. And then COVID hit. So the creative writing class was via Zoom, and made it way easier to share my work with these people because I knew it was my senior year. This was via Zoom. I was never going to see these people. And if I said that it was fiction, then, they have to believe me. So, yeah, it was definitely scary at first, but having that camaraderie with other fellow writers it definitely helps. And it's so I always thought of writing as a solitary experience, but this whole process has made me realize it's there's such a community behind it, and it's so important to get other people's opinions, to read other people's works. Yeah, so I think as long as I wasn't the first person going in class, and I saw other people being vulnerable too, then I was okay with it. Yeah.
Did that surprise you? Because I always ask the question, what surprised you most about the publishing industry? Did that surprise you the most that it is such a collaborative effort? It's not just you.
Totally. I thought I would have my manuscript, send it to them, and then that my editor would I thought editors were only responsible for grammatical things or maybe if this doesn't really make sense, let's change it. I did not realize how intense and close my relationship with my editor would be by the end of the book. She knows everything about me now, and that's so important because it's just so important to have other eyes on your work, because you could think it makes total sense, but I'm just one brain, so I got really close with my editor, Kinza, and she turned I'll Look for You Everywhere into something I'm so proud of. And that's definitely how many people and how many round of edits. That's what surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I also thought, okay, I'll do it, she does it, and then we publish. But no, it was I do it, she does it, I do it, she does it. We're just ping-ponging back and forth. Yeah. And but that makes you feel, I think, very confident by the end. This is the most we could have done. We really.
I thought that is always the biggest surprise when you're a debut, and you have an idea. And I always say your idea of how publishing works and what being an author is all about. It just comes from movies. It comes from what you see on the movie, especially a Hallmark TV movie, which is completely unrealistic. But that's your viewpoint of what being an author is like. And then you get your first, and you think you're done. You think, the agent's accepted my book. I've got the manuscript. Yeah. You are literally brushing off your shoulders thinking, I'm done. It's all good. Let me just sit back and watch the amazing review and the money roll in. And then you get your editor notes back. You get your structural edits, and you're like, what? Why are there notes? And why are there pages and pages of notes? Why are you asking me? It's always the questions that get me. Why are you asking me questions?
So many pages.
And that's always a shock. It's such you're like, no one, and it's weird. You think no one told me this?
Yeah, I know. But my editor, Kinza, she knew that this was my first time ever working with anybody. So she warned me 1,000 times before she was about to send her note. She's like, I need you to know it's going to look terrifying, and it's going to look like I hated your book. But please know, this is normal. This is, everyone goes through this. And then to toot my own horn, she was like, oh, and but I don't think this is true. I think she was trying to make me feel better. She's like, yeah, this is the least amount of notes I've ever given anyone. And I was like, okay, there's 800 pages. I'm not sure. But yeah, so she was, she's so gentle and caring. So that really did help with my ego.
Yeah, it does a really good job when you get your editor notes of putting your ego in check. But no matter what opinion you had of yourself, I'm the best, right? I'm the best writer that ever walked the earth. Everyone wants me. You get your structural notes, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I'm Nadine
No.
Matheson. And that's it. We need to work on this. You know what I find interesting though about
so
you?
true.
Because
Yeah.
you know when people find you online and they find you on TikTok, they find you on Instagram, they see all your, you know, they see all your videos because you're a content creator, and it's all about, and it's about books. And you know, I always say I don't have the energy to do the lip syncing and the dances and do all these, like, it's a lot of work, but I'm always impressed by it.
Mhm.
But you know what I think I found interesting is that it's so easy for you to be behind the camera creating this content, but then you was talking about being in uni, being in college, and not basically being a loner, not having friends. And
Yeah. I had literally 0 friends in college. I just like, that's why TikTok was so incredible, because only a core group of people, which is like, they're the only people who knew who I really was. And they were so frustrated by that. And I was so frustrated by that. And then COVID hit, and that kind of like snapped me out of it. I'm like, what am I doing with my life that like no one but these 4 people will ever know who I really am? So going into TikTok was a great way to like slowly start exposing myself without, actually having these real life relationships where I see how people are reacting to me, and then I overthink everything that they're thinking about me, which is like my biggest issue. So TikTok was a great middle ground to be able to test it out, like, and then close the app and then whatever, see what happens. And yeah, so I really do owe everything to TikTok, and like BookTok specifically. Yeah, it really helped me come out of my shell.
why do you think I don't know what to call us, people who just watch TikTok, why do you think you appealed? Can you see why you appeal to people? Well, you haven't just got like 10 followers. You got like 600, whatever the number, 600,000.
I think I don't know, readers were all the same, and I immediately found that when I came to BookTok, and that's what kept pulling me in to make more videos, because it was just like an overwhelming amount of positivity. And then I'd had girls be like, oh my God, like I daydream, about this all the time too. And then that was so validating, and I didn't feel weird anymore like I always have. So yeah, I think, us BookTok girls, I just think we're the coolest, and we're so creative and accepting. So yeah, it was instant for me, finding them.
Do you ever feel pressure to keep creating? This sounds a really strange thing to say, but keep creating good content, because there's so many people out there who see themselves as content creators, and there's so many trying to make themselves stand out of this crowd. So do you feel pressure, or you just good just to keep doing? I'm just good doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Like, your lane.
I worry about this every day, because
Really?
and yeah, I think it's hard to like put yourself out there and then it not do well, and then that sort of like confirms all the negative thoughts you had about yourself. You're like, oh, so like what I'm making is horrible and stupid and nobody cares. So there is a balance. I think 23 is like when I was struggling with it the most, because then you can't help but compare yourself to other creators, obviously. And that was hard. And then I felt like I was just making videos like, I don't know, just so people would see my face, not because I was genuinely interested in the content that I was making. So that's when I had to take a step back, and I was like, okay, let's reevaluate. People like to see what other people are genuinely passionate about. It is like not posting every day anymore. I used to do that for like 3 years straight. And talking about things that I like genuinely want to share with others and I want to recommend to others. So it's yeah, like it's not as I don't know, exciting is not the right word. It's not as I don't know, fast paced, I think, as a middle ground, I think. But I'm still trying out new things, what makes me happy, and hopefully it'll make someone else happy too.
Were you surprised when it all took off though? Because I said you've gone from being Cameron at college with your very small group of, it's a square group of people, to this being
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. And I don't know why, but my way to deal with everything is just I don't look at anything ever. So when it first started happening, I initially looked at the numbers growing, and then I threw my phone across the room and I said, nope, not dealing with this. But then, because I was just so scared. But then I finally came
What were you
around
scared of?
to actually looking at it, and like negative comments always at the beginning. I was so fearful of that because my sister, like I said, is a singer, and I've seen like some really nasty things on her pages and people talking bad about her. So I knew, because my sister and I are like the same person. So I knew if I saw like a negative thing, like it would put me down for the entire year. So I like to say that now that's not the case. I do get a fair amount of, negative comments, but now we can just brush them off. But yeah, wait, I forgot the question. Oh, and then it was really, I think the most crazy experience for me was when I was in Scotland. So I was born and raised in New York, and then I went on a trip to Scotland, of Glasgow. I was just like in the gift shop, and she came up to me and she's like, "Oh my God, I follow you on TikTok." And that was the craziest experience like of my life. And it made me realize, like, I don't know, like how cool everyone is. I keep saying the same thing, but it was just so crazy to put like real faces behind like the comments that you get.
Yeah.
And it was so special. It motivates me to keep creating because all these people are like so awesome and special. So yeah.
It is a crazy thing. I remember God, where was I? I was at a book festival. And this wasn't the festival. I say the festival a bit, like I'd already done my panel. So I think I was in like the bar, and I was talking to someone else. I'm just chatting away to someone. And then this woman came up to me and she goes, "Oh my God," no, she tapped me on my shoulder. And I turned around and she goes, "I recognized your voice from the podcast." And I was like, "What?" It's like,
wow.
She's like, "I listened to your podcast." Right?
That's commitment.
Commitment. But then I was like, I didn't think I was that distinctive for anyone to just tap me in a bar and say, "I recognize your voice from the podcast." Like, out of all the book moments I've had, like people coming up to me with a copy of my book for me to sign, like that's cool. That's really cool. Like that will never get old. But hearing someone say, "I recognize your voice," that was
No.
I was saying it freaked me out, but I was
that's
like, "Oh
next level." Yeah, that's crazy.
It's a different level.
I love that.
And it was, every time I think about it, I'm like, no, that was cool. That really was cool. Like we're moving up now. But listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. What I want to ask is, how did you get though from doing your BookTok, being this influential creator, and then how were you found? Were you found, or did you go and seek out an agent?
No, so I have a bit of an unconventional publishing story. So I was found by my editor first, and I wasn't represented by an agent. So at the beginning, when they gave me the offer, I was like, oh, let me just put on my lawyer hat and like this hat and see what I can do with this like contract that I was like, is this in English? I don't get what's happening. But luckily, because of BookTok, I have made several close friends, and one of them I remembered she had just signed a deal for her book. And I was like, you know what? I have to ask if this is okay, if what is happening. And she was like, oh, girl, what are you doing on your own? Like, you cannot do this. So she recommended me to her agent, and then I sent her agent Lauren this like frantic email from an insane person, and I was like, please help me. I know you don't know who I am, but I'm struggling here. And somehow miraculously that worked, and so then I was signed, and then she took over for me.
Did you have a plan for yourself though in the beginning when you first started writing this book? Did you have a plan, or was it just going to be, I'm just going to write this book and just see what happens? Or no, I want to write it, find an agent, get it published?
This book, candidly, it was something that lived, in my drawer, and I would just work on it at night when I had some free time. I was very scared about letting anyone read it. So, like I said, for college, I did want to be an English major, but I was always assuming like, I would then be an English professor, like that, get anything else. I would just keep going to school. So yeah, this one specifically, because it was so close to my heart and like to who I was, I didn't want anyone to read it. But it's because of TikTok that I found the confidence to share my writing. So I used to like tease these like 30-second excerpts of like, we want more, like this is so good. And I was like, oh my God, like you do? Okay. Like I actually have 400 more pages. So I think TikTok is the reason why it gave me the motivation to finish the book and to make them full-fledged characters rather than like a fan fiction about myself. Because I think if you read the book, Magdalen is very different from me at the end. She was her own self. She's her own individual and different from me. And it was actually really cathartic to see how someone with similar personality traits to me would react in these situations. And like, from there, I was able to process it and be like, oh, that's not good. Like, you shouldn't react like that, or you shouldn't let someone talk to you, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's kind of like therapy, isn't it? Because I think it doesn't matter what genre you write in, there's always pieces of yourself in the stuff that you write. And, we talk about our experiences. You may not do it, like it might not be an exact mirror of what's happened to you, but you take extracts of your experiences and you pull it into your work. And then sometimes when you're writing those scenes, especially when you're writing dialogue, I find, and you have it, it's like being in the shower when you've had an argument with someone. You go in the shower afterwards and you replay the argument in your head. You said, I should have said this and I should have said that. But then you do that on the page, should have said.
I know, because sometimes I would write dialogue, like I would say something, and then I'm like, wait a minute, like, that's not good. Like, they shouldn't be saying it like that. Like, she should be stronger. And then it would make me like evaluate, oh, like, why would I say that if this happened to me? So yeah, it definitely was like therapy for me.
Yeah. And how did your family respond? Because in the beginning, they were like, no, you're not being right. We need to do something sensible. So what was their reaction like to you when now Cameron Capello is a writer? She has a book, not just a book deal. She now has a book. And like you can see the book and feel the book and smell the book.
they're like my number one supporters. Because I totally get it, like them wanting me obviously to, you know, have a stable living and be comfortable. So I always like understood their worry, but I was like, if you could just see what was in my brain and know that it's going to work out, like just don't worry about it. So when it actually happened, instead of me just like talking endlessly about that it is going to happen, they were so cute and so proud. And I think because of TikTok, they watched that journey happen and they were like, okay, she's onto something. We can sit back and watch what's happening. And yeah, it was great. It was just amazing. Yeah. Everyone was so happy.
Did they understand the TikTok journey? Did they understand what was happening?
Yeah. My dad's like TikTok's number one user. Like he's always he'll send me like the statistics of my videos and stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, he's very like analytical, very mathematical, which I don't know how I happened then. But he so he got it right away. And and my mom just like, she's like me, she doesn't want to see anything negative for you, you know, all the way over here. Because she's just too much of an empath. She feels too much. I think they got it.
Is it different dealing with, I don't know if you read your reviews or anything like that, but is it different dealing with reviews of your books as opposed to dealing with the comments that people will give, well, I suppose, review on your content?
Yeah, I think reviews of my book is definitely a harder pill to swallow. And I get it. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, obviously. But I just think when you've put so many years, like I wrote this book for 3 years, you know, and like literally my tears comments of like people are like, oh, you know, whatever. That was hard. That was hard. And it still is, because like it's just getting reviews now, and I accidentally went on Goodreads and saw something and I was like, no, like my day is gone now. I can't get out of bed. But you know, on TikTok it was more like, oh, you're annoying, or like you're ugly, like this. And I was able to like negative comments on TikTok. So I'm hoping that will happen with reviews. Hopefully I can build a shield, you know?
Yeah, I think it's important to build a shield with the reviews, because I mean, I said it doesn't matter what genre you're writing them in. Your books are personal. It's you. So you put your blood, sweat, and tears literally into this book, and it's not just, and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think it might be different. People who have followed your journey, they know it hasn't happened overnight because they've seen it over the course of years, and you've given them extracts, so they've been there with you. But a lot of people who maybe haven't followed you on social media and are finding you for the first time, they can have in their head it happens overnight, and it doesn't. So any review, even I say negative, it feels like a personal attack on you. So it's hard. But then as I say to myself, I try not to do reviews.
It is.
Especially Goodreads.
Oh yeah, I definitely. Yeah, like I accidentally went on Goodreads because that's a, you know, like a hellscape. I don't go on there anymore. But yeah, just like my finger slipped and I was like, no.
You're not the only one.
Was there, so I was like, okay, might as well just scroll a little. Yeah,
I did that. I had it with the kill list that came out, and I went on Goodreads, and I'm like, normally I'm not looking at this stuff because, you know, everything's subjective. Like I don't like every book I read, so you know I can accept that. But it was, I think what it was the only 1-star. I had a 1-star review on there before, but the 1-star review was there, like a year before the book had even come out. So I'm like, you haven't even read the book. So I don't know what you thought you were reviewing. So I didn't take no notice of it. Then there was a second one, but when the book has come out, and I was like, let me see, because everything else is really good. And all it said was boring, and I just found out the most hilarious. Boring. Have you read my books? It's not boring. And I just found it so ridiculous that I was able to just brush it off. And I'm like, I know my books are not boring. They're not boring. So let's talk about your book. I'll look for you everywhere. If we were, talking, let me start that again. Like, for the listeners of the conversation who are going to pick up your book for the first time, this is a bit bad though. It's like I'm asking you to do an elevator pitch, which is always like the worst thing on earth. But if you had to tell your readers about your book.
Okay, so yeah, I've had to do this a few times, and every time I black out and forget. Yeah. So I would say that I'll Look for You Everywhere is an intoxicating love story that's set in a small, sleepy village in northern Italy. And two people have to come home for two childhood. See, I'm messing up already. Two childhood friends have to come back home for the first time in a long time for a wedding. It's so hot now, and the connection is unstoppable. But there are secrets. There are demons keeping them apart. He's her best friend's older brother. That's weird. And he's got, he's burdened by memories that keep him from, doing what he wants to do. So,
have you cast the book in your head? Do you know who will be playing your characters?
Okay. Yes, I have. So I always pick. Yeah, this is what I do all the time in my head. So it's so easy for me. Dev Patel was always my Theo, or Callum Turner. Those I don't know, those two. I just need and long hair. That's the one thing. And the cover of the book. Yeah, he didn't have long hair at the beginning. And then I saw that, and guys, I mentioned the long hair maybe every other page. We have to change this. So then they put Jeremy Allen White's hair on the cover. They superimposed it, which is funny.
Yeah.
And then for the girl, there's an Italian actress, and her name is, wait, let me look her up. Baby Cast. It's actually a really good show on Netflix called Baby. Her name is Benedetta Porcaroli. I know not a lot of people are going to know who that is, but I always pictured her as Magdalen. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else for Magdalen. Can I say me? I don't know.
Yeah, you can say you. You can say you. Right, Cameron, I have some questions for you, which I've had to change. These are the 4 questions I normally finish the interview with, or finish the conversation with. But I've had to change a couple of them, because I haven't asked you how old you are, but I don't think you're 25 yet.
I am. I'm 25.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions is, if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? But that can't work with you. So the question I'm going to ask you to that one is, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, but at that moment when you're about to step foot into college?
That's a great question. I would definitely tell her, you don't have to pretend to be normal. Everyone's a little weird, and that's okay. And people like weird. And, it's better to show who you really are, and then have some people not like you, but potentially make way stronger connections with other people than to pretend to fit in just to be unseen, just so you can fall in the background. Yeah. just think like being weird is so good. And I'm like, now I'm fully embracing it. But as a 18-year-old, my God, I just wanted to wear what everyone else was wearing, look how everyone else was looking, so that way no one would like see me and no one would talk to me. But I'm like, that's so tiring.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? When you really think about what it means to wanting to fit in when you're that age, it really means that you want to make yourself disappear because you just want, and that's just when you think it's only now, it's just a weird concept, because why would you want to disappear?
Yeah. And it's like, I now think about this, it's like the people who I appreciate and respect the most are the people who are like they're just completely themselves, and that's what I admire in them. So I just try to remember that all the time, and then mimic that to the best of my abilities. It's still hard, but we try every day.
We do. We try and we take it day by day. So I'm interested in your answer to this because, talking to you is one thing and learning about you, but then seeing the TikTok, Instagram version of you. So the question is, are you an introvert or extrovert or a hybrid of the two?
Oh my God. I'm an introvert. I practically invented the word. Yeah. Like I said, like TikTok was only because I could do it from my room and not have to interact with anyone. So I'm very much an introvert, very much a homebody. I mean, maybe get a shot of tequila into me and I'll be extroverted for an hour, but besides that, no, it's introverted.
It's weird. It is weird. I mean, that's our word for the day, but it is weird because people would see you. Because it's like being on a stage. It's a big, massive virtual stage. And you'd think, yeah, you'll be fine. You must be an extrovert to put yourself out there. But I'm not surprised with the answer. But I think a lot of people are like that. Like actors and musicians are like that. Inwardly, they're introverts, but there's still this need to create and put that creation out there.
Totally. Yeah. And it is a interesting like dynamic. Because I do have that drive to like have to perform almost. But then, when it comes to a different person, but not in the sense of like I'm not a different person, but I can just like express things differently when I know it's through performance than if it's not performance, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. So my next question for you, I said I've had to change these around for you, is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Hopefully in 5 years' time, I will have written, I'm going to say 2 more books. I would love to eventually try my hand at acting, like that scene. That would be cool, if that would happen. And and I just hope I get to keep doing this. This is just, I feel very fortunate and lucky that this is my job, like getting to do something I love so much.
Are you comfortable calling yourself a writer? There's so many writers, it takes them a long time to get to that point where, yes, I am a writer. This is my job. This is what I do. This is who I am.
I've always said, like, after book 2, then maybe I'll start referring to myself as that. I don't know. With one book, I don't feel like a writer. I just feel like someone who's written something. But maybe after 2, it'll sink in.
I think you can definitely call yourself. Well, not definitely. No, you are. You can call yourself Cameron Capello writer.
Yeah. I know,
exactly.
It says it on my Instagram bio.
So finally,
so I should.
Cameron Capello, where can listeners of the conversation find you online?
So you can find me at the Chamber of Secret Books on Instagram or Chamber of Secret Books on TikTok. And yeah, I think all my links are there. I've got a website, but that's boring. So those are my two main platforms.
Yeah. And that just leaves me to say, Cameron Capello, thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Thank you. This was incredible.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.